it's your entire life that you've put into this for the last 2 years or so, right? So why did you choose GoXLR Utility app as that outlet? What was your first interaction with the official GoXLR team who were in Canada at the time?
Our first official interaction was about a couple of days after we had something which we could send messages to the GoXLR.
Yeah,
We very much wanted to make sure we weren't causing any issues with IP and any other problems or toes we may be stepping on.
that's
and
very respectful of you.
yeah, and making sure that the licenses are everyone's happy with licensing. And so we had a meeting where we covered those bases, but that was certainly the initial point.
Right. I remember hearing your name, well, not your actual name. Up until this point, I've known you as FrostyCoolSlug, but I remember hearing talk of FrostyCoolSlug and this rogue Discord, open source development going on, and it was really exciting. I think for us, with the struggles in the office, because obviously it's well known now the office was shut down, it just didn't work out with the way that the international company was managing. And so it was kind of like this ray of hope for, well, not just us, but a lot of people using GoXLRs to have this development project that is going strong and totally at the core of what the GoXLR is all about, which is the community you were talking about earlier with open source. Once starting the utility app, did you make connections and meet people who were interested in helping? How did that process go?
I mean, a lot of it, meeting, yes. I mean, kind of here and there. A lot of it is, as I say, a lot of situations where someone kind of wants something and has the capability to contribute, which is probably the strongest point of the utility.
Right.
I mean, I remember the visually impaired accessibility community
Mm-hmm.
were involved, and they were submitting pull requests to make the UI work properly with screen readers.
So great.
Yeah, it was amazing. Occasionally people just see some code that doesn't quite look right, and they'll submit a pull request and say, yeah. More recently, with the next release, we're adding translation support.
Okay.
Where the utilities, I think, got 6 or 7 languages initially to go,
Nice.
and that was just community members spending a couple of hours going through all of the strings which we've defined and translating them into their local language.
Right.
So that's again just gonna kind of move forward, and that's what the strength of this kind of thing is. Just other people, they don't have to. They can stay. They can go. They can just make one pull request and then disappear off into the ether. They can stick around, offer help and support. But I mean, well, we appreciate them all. Certainly, it's and we just let people do it how they want to do it.
Yeah, that's great. How did you feel about the involvement of TC Helicon official coming in and maybe sharing code or in any way getting involved?
They were absolutely amazing. From the first sort of email we sent off to them, they were pretty communicative. Any questions and stuff we were put in contact with. That's some direct links to a couple of developers who worked there.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we didn't actually use the resources at our disposal that much because we were still just kind of enjoying a lot of the reversing process.
Yeah.
There was occasionally a number that didn't make any sense, and if we needed the help with it, we can just kind of poke out, and they'd be like, "Okay, here's how this is calculated."
That's good. But you still, for the sake of reverse engineering, you.
A lot of it was, yeah, absolutely.
That's so funny. That's great, though. Yeah, I'm thinking of the guys who you would have talked to, and there were so many great people on that team who were really excited about the product. And it's definitely a shame that the office had to close, but I'm pretty excited now that we're here and moving forward. So the next thing I'm wondering is kind of the root of this all, which is why the GoXLR? what interested you about this project in specific?
In relation to the utility, or
In relation to making the utility app and contributing specifically, because for people that don't know, this is like so many hundreds of hours of work that it's your entire life that you've put into this for the last 2 years or so, right?
Yeah.
So why did you choose GoXLR Utility app as that outlet?
Some of it was just, why not? It was sat on my desk. It was there. I wanted to use Linux, and that meant having a working GoXLR.
Yeah.
So I just went and made it work. It was. I know it's a kind of very short answer, but I guess it's something I enjoy doing. If I see something that I can make work or do something special or play around with, I'll just pull up an IDE and start reversing it or writing code for it and try and work my own way around it. Even if something already exists, I'll still occasionally just go, what if I made it?
Cool.
That code doesn't always get released. It's generally pretty bad, but it's
Fair enough.
I just enjoy the challenge of it. Honestly, more than anything else.
Yeah.
Bugs are problems, but they're also mini challenges. They're things to overcome. You always get that sense of progression always with a project, and I kind of enjoy that very much when I'm just working on things.
It's interesting you say always sense of progression. In my experience with my coding, it's progression and then it's a big hard stop where you solve a very hard problem. Have you run into a lot of large problems where you're like totally stuck?
Of course, I think everyone does when they're writing code. It's I will generally the way I fix it is just to firstly make a complete hash of it. Just write absolutely terrible code that makes no logical sense at all.
Yeah.
Just to try and break the larger problem down into smaller problems.
Yeah.
And smaller problems I can fix. So yes, I can't think of anything off the top of my head which was specific. I mean, the sampler and handling the sampler properly has always been an ongoing effort with the utility. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of moving parts. Making sure everything is captured properly, make sure everything's trimmed properly, making sure the buttons are handled in the correct timings.
Yeah.
And it's definitely kind of been one of those which I didn't actually anticipate supporting at all when I began the utility work.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things like, I don't want to do audio processing, which is ridiculous for someone who's working on an audio processing case. But it was just very much, I just kind of sat there and like, one day it's like, okay, I've just got to try this. And kind of went from there, and still tweaking it to this day.
Very, very cool. Have you done any audio processing before? Any kind of coding with audio?
None at all.
Okay.
I didn't even know how audio frequencies worked.
Wow.
It's like 48,000 hertz. That's a number. Was basically my initial approach to it.
That's what it is.
Kind of getting it down to understanding frames, samples.
Right.
Yeah, at the bottom level, it took a bit of time. But it's kind of once I got there. It all makes sense when you kind of look back at it and sort of go back in the other direction. But it was very challenging.
That's cool. So, on the note of the sampler and implementing that specific feature, you basically took the exact UI from the GoXLR app and replicated it to a T in the utility app. Is there a reason behind that?
One of the things which was kind of important when we started was to ensure that anyone moving from Windows to Linux, which, as I say, was the original intent, had a familiar experience. If you've been using the GoXLR on Windows for 12 months, having things suddenly move around when they kind of start using the utility is not ideal, because it just kind of fields more questions for support. So it was very much just a design decision at the start. Also, I mean, I'm a single man. I'm a single person working on this, and UI, UX, not necessarily my strong suit. I'm more of a code monkey. So using something that already existed as a template just made my life a lot easier from the start.
Right. I am pretty into the design stuff, which is funny. We've got an interesting contrast in that sense. But I was happy to see I mean, you say you're not a UX person, but in a way, some of the changes you have made are improving the user experience. Were those your own idea or a contribution from other people? How do those come about?
A lot of them are things which people seem to request often.
Mm.
I mean, I generally keep an eye on the official Discord as well as the utility Discord,
Yeah.
and sort of see what people are talking about, how people are discussing things. Um, it was kind of interesting to see occasionally just certain things pop up frequently, repeatedly. And it was like, okay, I can probably just throw that in 20 minutes.
That's so great.
From my perspective, that's not too much of a problem. I think the fader, sorry, the sampler pre-buffer was definitely one which I saw pop up a few times. It was something I didn't want it myself, so I was like, so I just put it in. You know, a lot of people were asking for the ability to load profiles or at least load colors when their computer shuts down or when their computer goes to sleep. And as I said, that was one of the things I kind of ran into as well. So it was just one of those features which I throw in. Occasionally, someone will make just a very quick suggestion of something, and it's like, yeah, I'll take about 10 minutes. And and while a lot of these features only kind of help a handful of people, they do help the greater whole of the utility itself, because everyone gets to use them. Even if you don't want to use them, they are there in case you change your mind later.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just various places. And in some cases, things are just contributed by the community. If they want something specific, submit a pull request and give it a quick look over, and if it looks fine, they're like, yeah, there you go.
That's great. That's so great. Speaking of pull requests, how do you find the quality of other people's code? Do you find you having to parse through?
I try to, if I, in a lot of cases, it's fine. I don't generally have too many problems. I will always try to teach if there is something that's not quite done right, or that I don't feel is done right. Right is a relative term in a lot of cases.
Sure.
So long as the end result is achieved, then it's technically right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of go through, review, make notes, sort of advise on potentially other ways of handling something, and just kind of look through and try to guide them if that is necessary. I mean, in some cases it's just not. I can just hit the merge button and off to the races.
Nice. That's so nice. And I was going to say, you have kind of a teaching vibe. It seems like you are very good at communicating these concepts in fairly manageable chunks. So I think that's a great thing that you're helping people along the way with the development of this community project.